Everybody can hear me, right? Yes. I just got to thank everybody for coming down, and I got to thank everybody. It's the second week the book is on the New York Times bestseller list. Yeah. And I really wrote the book. I wrote it for my kids, and I wrote it for you. I hope you get something out of it. It meant a lot to me, and now I'm going to sit down, and we're going to converse.
Congratulations on the number 2
Thank you.
placement.
Was
that something you were thinking about when you wrote this book, that you were going to be a New York Times
I never thought of that.
author?
I never wanted to write a book at all. I think that most of the autobiographies that come out are pretty much trash. I mean, most of the books that people write, especially entertainers, they tend to be kind of like love letters to yourself. It's people writing things that are kind of doubtful, may have happened, may not have happened, may be worth commending them for or not. So unless a book about somebody's life has something to offer, then I don't see any purpose in writing it. So once I started thinking about it, I thought, I want to leave my kids something so that they understand what I went through and what it takes to succeed, not in music, but in life. So I started writing the book. I never wanted to write a book that was a Kiss book. I wanted to write my story. And I just found in life, as I got older, that the most you get out of life is when you give the most. And when you open up and tell people what's going on in you, they find out that you're not much different than they are. And maybe if that's inspiring, great. We all need to be inspired.
Did you read the other Kiss books? Because there are so many out there. And did you go into writing this book with the intention of clearing up anything? Or
I'm not a big fan of fiction, so... honestly, there was no sense of, I'm going to write the tell-all. I'm going to write the ultimate, honest version of what happened, although that's what it is. I was writing a book about myself, and there's no separating me from the band. So it's a Kiss book in that sense, but it's so much more. That's what I love so much about the book so far is the response it's gotten from people who aren't necessarily Kiss fans. I think it's a book that somebody can read and go, that's me. People struggle with all kinds of difficulties, learning difficulties, not looking like other people. And what do you do? How do you deal with it? I grew up being taunted. I grew up being made fun of, and my family wasn't that supportive. And interestingly, I thought, because I loved music, I said, I'm going to become famous, and then life's going to be great. I was really fortunate that you people made my dreams come true. And with everything that you did, suddenly I realized I was still personally pretty miserable. I was so grateful for what I had, but it didn't change my life any. You can hide secrets, you can hide what's going on inside you from the people around you, but you can never hide it from yourself. So at that point, like a lot of people, you either put a needle in your arm, a shotgun in your mouth, or you stop being a victim and you get your shit together. Yeah. And my journey has been to have a great life. And what I found was, you get nothing like this. You have to open your hand, and it was eye-opening for me to live the life I've lived. Somebody said to me, "Oh, was it like cathartic to write the book?" I said, "No, it was cathartic to live the life."
I think the most surprising aspect of the book when I started reading it was realizing how difficult you had it right from the beginning, and how much of an outsider you were as a child. Because if someone looks at the story of Kiss, it's very successful, it's all straight up, and but you had a very rough start.
Yeah, but I try to tell people that your success and what you make of your life is totally up to you. The people who tell you what's impossible are always the people who failed. And if you innately have a sense of what you're capable of doing, then you should be able to do it. Don't fool yourself. If I had decided I'm going to become a great mathematician, I would be probably flipping burgers, because you have to know your limitations, and you also have to know what you're capable of. But once you identify something that's a passion to you and that you love doing and that you're good at, the only thing that separates you from success is hard work. Hard work never killed anybody.
That's right. You were, for those who haven't read the book, you were born with an ear deformity and you could not hear out of your right ear. How did that affect you early on?
Well, the tough part is to be different when you're a child. You can choose to be different when you get older, but when you're a child, you have no say in it. Kids can be cruel, but surprisingly, adults can objectify you. People can look at you and forget there's a human being there and kind of look at you as a specimen. And there's no getting away from that. So it's kind of relentless. It's incredibly draining, and you have this sense that you can never get away from it. If you put on a shirt or if you put on a dress, I'm not talking to the guys wearing the dresses, I'm talking. But if you put on something that you find out is embarrassing or people are staring at, you go home and change your clothes. When you have a facial difference, when you have a deformity, you don't get to change it. It's something you have to live with. And it's never easy. And what can make it harder is, sometimes parents want to give you what they think is tough love. I don't think that that's tough love. It's just a misunderstanding of what a child needs. If you tell a child that they're just like everybody else and they're not, well, how many times are they going to confide in you? If somebody says to you, you're just like everyone else, and you go, Mom, I'm not like everybody else. And so I've tried to speak to a lot of parents and said, listen, the most refreshing thing and embracing thing you can say to your kids is the same thing that I've been saying to kids when I meet them is, you're not like everybody else. And life's going to be more difficult for you. But if you're willing to work hard, you can win. You can come out on top. So I think it's important for parents to acknowledge what's going on. Yeah, you can get the kid who's got a limp to win the race, but you leave out the emotional component, and that's so important to who we are, is connecting our hearts and our heads.
Your parents weren't that supportive in other aspects of your life as well. Did you feel like you had something to prove to them?
Yeah, and what's interesting is I think that never leaves us. I think even as adults, I would find myself trying to get acknowledgement from my parents. I think we're always kids when it comes to our parents. When you see your parents, you want that acknowledgement. I remember when I did Phantom of the Opera, I had this sense, now they think I'm legit, Our crazy son's not on stage in a pair of tights beating off a guitar.
If you can say beating off a guitar a lot more tonight, I think we found the answer. So your parents aren't that supportive. You have this pretty drastic physical difference, and you see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. What happens to you in that moment?
It was a epiphany. It was like this revelation. Look, I'm a little fat kid who's deaf on one side, has a deformity, and I see this band, and I loved music from the time I was little, and I see this band on Ed Sullivan, and I just went, I can do that. I may not be able to be them, but I can touch that nerve. Now, what's that based on? It's just based on a gut feeling. And I think that when we're young, we have a very clear idea of what we're capable of. And as we get a little older, adults beat it out of us. We have an innate sense of what's possible until somebody tells us it's impossible. And the people who tell you what's impossible are the ones who failed. So misery loves company. So a lot of times people don't champion you and tell you, yeah, that's possible. So, I mean, that being said, I wasn't initially very, very talented or gifted. My parents couldn't afford to send us, my sister and I, both to music school at the same time. So they sent my sister for mandolin lessons, and then they took her out of this school and sent me there for guitar. I didn't realize there was different styles of guitar. It was classical guitar. But in any case, I was there for about a month, and the teacher said to me, "Tell your parents we'll take your sister back for free if you quit."
So there's another part to that, because you saw the Beatles and then you realized that, hey, I can do this with my life. And then you saw Led Zeppelin and Robert Plant. Was it in 1969?
69, yeah.
And then that was, the puzzle really started coming together.
Yeah. I was a huge Anglophile. I loved all the British bands. Wasn't a big fan of most of the bands that came out of this area, and neither are you. So, you know, I was fortunate. I could go to the Fillmore East. You had the Fillmore here in Winterland. So on any given weekend, for $3, $4, and $5, you could see Humble Pie, Derek and the Dominoes, and somebody else, or you could see Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone. It was always 3-act bills and great eclectic groups of musicians and music. So that was like church to me, was going to see the Yardbirds with Jimmy Page. All the, you know, while other kids were doing God knows what, I was just making a pilgrimage downtown. So, and when I saw Zeppelin, it was for less than 2,000 people, but it was so palpable what they were doing. The energy and the focus, the sexuality, the musicianship, everything was just so perfect that it was awe-inspiring and humbling at the same time. When I left, I said to my friend, let's not even talk about this, because anything we say will minimize what we just saw. I mean, it was so incredible. It raised a bar and set a bar for me that I said, I'll never reach that bar, but work towards that. You know that that's possible. Maybe not for me, but, you know, Zeppelin, I mean, Jimmy Page is it. I mean, he's...
So you had that bar, but you did something quite remarkable, which is you transformed yourself into not just the rock star, but this comic book hero, this icon, this superhero, really. You became this superhuman character. When you first put on the star on your eye and the makeup, did you know that you were going to transcend just a mere, you know, the Robert Plant type?
A mere Robert Plant
Well,
type?
you know,
I'm still trying to transcend.
those guys are walking around all over the place. Yeah.
We always wanted to be more than what we had seen. We wanted to be the band we never saw. It just came about very naturally, this evolution. And interesting that the painfully shy kid, the introverted kid whose social skills were like next to none, created this character. And it was really interesting because when we first started playing in clubs, everybody would talk on stage, and it was embarrassing. I mean, it's something you have to work at to know how to, you know, focus a band and also focus an audience. So very quickly, I kind of put my foot down and said, I'm the one who's going to do the talking. And you know, thankfully everybody shut up.
Incidentally, my favorite things on YouTube are the 90-minute stitched together, you know, your stage band.
All right, people!
So you studied like Steve Marriott, and you put a lot of thought into that, what you would say on stage.
We all are inspired by people who come before us. I didn't create anything. I'm the result of all these other parts. I'm like the sum of all these people who I respected and was inspired by. So Steve Marriott was, Humble Pie was in just an amazing band. And he really turned these theater shows that I saw into like evangelical events. He was a preacher. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I want to do still. When we do shows, I want the person in the back row to know that I'm talking to them. Everybody at our shows counts. And I owe everybody my last drop of blood and sweat. So, and it's exhilarating. I'm thrilled to have the kind of following that we have, and it's a big responsibility. And to this day, we'll go out on tour in June. I designed a new stage that arguably is the best stage we've had. So it's always about not only living up to the audience's, I don't want to call you the audience, my friends, my fans. Not only, your expectations, but the cool thing about my position is that I'm not only in KISS, but I'm a huge fan of the band. So I want the band to be the band, continue to be the band that I hope and wish it would be. So,
in the book,
this is like, it's very serious,
Don't worry, I'll get to the girls.
Boy, he can talk in a quiet voice and put sentences together.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah.
We have a lot of time.
Okay.
In the book, you talk about that shyness and how you would go on stage and be star child and just exude this confidence, yet you'd come off stage and you couldn't even function in the most basic social situations. You want to go to a party and you drive up and
horrible.
you can't go. It's a restaurant actually.
Yeah.
And you can't go inside. You play Madison Square Garden and you're sitting alone after the show in a deli in New York eating matzo soup.
Nobody would believe. I just said good night and had a great time. And look, what I was on stage wasn't an act, and it's not an act today. It's very much who I am. What was missing was a person when I left the stage. To this day, look, I know guys in other bands who never want to go home because they have no home. I didn't want to be one of those people, and I was. I came off stage at the Garden, Madison Square Garden, and literally found myself in a deli going, nobody would believe that I'm here by myself. We have 3 sold out nights or whatever. There's at least for me, there was the challenge to integrate my life, not to just have this great life on stage, but to have a great life off stage. And that took a whole lot more work.
Well, the flip side of that was, which is another story you tell in the book, you saw a woman on the cover of Penthouse magazine, you called up your manager, and she was in your bathtub that day, basically.
The one thing I never want people to think is I was so lonely. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me.
It wasn't that bad, was it?
It wasn't that bad. Those moments weren't deep in every sense, but it was a great time to. I could go shopping through any magazine and just go send that one over.
I'll take that.
I'll take that. They come over the house and I look for the staple in the stomach from the.
Gene claims to have had 4,600 plus. Did you keep track of your?
Yeah, but those weren't all humans. There's a couple of cattle, There's livestock in there, let me tell you.
Ouch. So, KISS. Kiss performed here in 1977 at the Cow Palace. The night they were there. The night Elvis Presley died. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
show
at the Cow Palace, we dedicated Rock and Roll All Night to Elvis Presley. And we used to have some great times here. We would stay at the Miyako.
Yeah.
And we had some very, very good times.
In your first appearance here in 1975, there was a review in the Chronicle, not written by me, obviously. And it said, the ludicrous hard rock quartet that appeared Friday at Winterland made them maybe the most crass, worthless rock band to run through town in years. The entire performance was silly, but not funny, and barely worth dignifying by comment. Did things like that bother you, or were?
Whoa, man! Dig the Jefferson Airplane, man. That's real music. I never wanted to look like, a musician who just got out of bed alone and walked onto the stage. So most of those critics are long gone, And I mean, truthfully, when people are that vehement and vocal about disliking something, it's got way more to do with them and their issues than mine, So, did it bother me? No. I always knew what we were doing. I was always proud of it. I had a plan, and those weren't even obstacles. Those were like mosquitoes. Those were just like pests, If you believe in what you're doing, you don't listen to the people who tell you it's no good.
Right. So that brings us to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. After 15 years, 14 years,
yes.
they decided, okay, well, we've run out of bands, let's let Kiss in now.
Yeah. That's not far off.
Why did you accept? You could have turned them down.
Because our fans, a lot of them see that as a validation of their belief in us, and they're fighting for us. And for that reason, I was there to get the award. Those slimy weasels. When somebody doesn't invite you to a party for 15 years, it's pretty clear they don't want you at the party. And the more people know about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the less they give it any credence. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of the people. That's why whenever there's an induction each year, most people scratch their heads about half the people who are being inducted. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is Jan Wenner from Rolling Stone magazine, who hasn't bought a ticket or bought an album in decades. John Landau, Springsteen's manager, Bruce is phenomenal, but I think that the 3 or 4 people who are the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, these are guys who trademarked a name. You could have been the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if you had trademarked it. So these guys decide who they want in their little club, and we clearly, look, I'm as proud of the people who hate me as the people who like me, And I couldn't pick a better bunch of weasels to hate me than those people. I mean, even when we were accepting the induction and we went to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, we showed up there. There were no passes for us. We're standing in the hall. We can't go into any rooms. They didn't tell us the running order. We had no idea when we were going to go on. We didn't even know how to get on the stage. Everybody else is giving acceptance speeches, and I'm going, wow, they're doing really great. And I look, and there's a teleprompter that they're all reading off. They didn't tell us that we could use a teleprompter. They're weasels, and the people who don't pay for tickets and don't pay for albums should not be the people who decide what is or isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you put us in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 40 years ago.
And as everyone knows, they only wanted to let the original form.
They wanted, yeah, they were. It was interesting to me because they were very insistent on it just being the original four, and to me that was the only way I could rationalize it is we're a bitter follow. So when I said to them, some of the later members, mind you, but people who played on multi-platinum albums, played to millions of people. Spell their names. So I said, what about those guys? They went, it's a non-starter. What do you mean it's a non-starter? You're a pencil pusher, and I'm a guitar player. I'm the one who's being nominated for induction. So I was really offended by the fact that I was told, well, we're not going to discuss that. So as far as I was concerned, we were there to celebrate the entire history of the band. If they wanted to minimize it and make it the original four, that's fine. I don't play by anybody else's rules except mine.
So tell us a little bit about that night. Do you regret not performing?
No, God.
No.
I was, look, they wanted us to perform, as some sort of like, first of all, they hate us. So the fact that I would do anything for them is ridiculous. But they wanted the original band in makeup. And I didn't want to do it because, look, the original two guys, and I was there, so whatever everybody else thinks they know, is just a matter of what you've heard. But they wanted the original guys. Those guys both quit the band or were thrown out of the band once, twice. And to risk putting them on stage in makeup, and you have to remember, we're not like other bands. You don't go up on stage in jeans or something and go, oh, that's the old guy. Oh, that's the newer member. If there's four guys on stage in makeup, you're going to say that's Kiss. And if the band happens to suck by chance, I'm the one who bears the brunt of it because I never left the band. I've been there 40 years every day. And I wasn't... And I wasn't going to roll the dice on behalf of an organization that I think is a sham, and two guys who honestly don't deserve to wear those outfits anymore. We couldn't